Hello to the chicos, hello to the chicas, lovely folks. Today we are going to do two things in one video, so I'm very proud of myself because I like to be super effective. First and foremost, I would like to clear up a little bit of chess jargon for you because I feel that there is a generic need for it in the wider chess community. And two, I'm going to, well, I guess it's a little bit pompous to say that I'm going to introduce you, but I'm going to try to persuade you to engage with a certain chess genre, or even two of them, that I think is vastly underestimated in terms of the value it represents. And so we shall begin first with the introduction, I guess is a good way to put it, of the difference between chess problems, chess puzzles, and chess studies. This is a trio, three different things, which, by the way, the Australians show like this, the Europeans show like this, and they all think that the other ones are complete weirdos for doing that. So in another video we are going to... Oh, and the Filipinos do this. So in another video we are going to discuss about we will have a discussion about the correct way to show free using your fingers and your thumb if that's appropriate. But now, let's divide these three things. Chess problems are composed positions. That means that chess problems never come from a game that was played by two individuals against each other. It's a dude or dudette or more of them who sat down behind a board, had an artistic concept, and he gave shape to that artistic concept on a chessboard. It should be considered primarily as an art. And so all the, I wanted to say clowns, but I want to go very soft in this video. So all the people who go like, oh, it doesn't look like chess, what's the use of it? It's like, yeah, what's the use of Mona Lisa? Not an awful lot, is it? It's hanging in a wall in a museum in France. What's the use of it? The use of it is that it's an artistic masterpiece, and people appreciate beauty, the beauty that the artist has managed to achieve and potentially even send a message with. And chess problems aim to do the same. They are there for you to be entertained, but also they are there to challenge you a little bit too, because most of them are actually very, very tricky to solve. That is not the core concept of any chess problem, by the way. Difficulty is not a requirement at all for a puzzle. I just walked into my own trap. Pause, record. Yeah, for a problem to be successful. Okay, so, oh boy, that was ugly. So a chess problem doesn't need to be necessarily difficult to be fantastic. They usually are, but it's not a requirement. And a lot of people don't really go deeply enough into this topic to appreciate their beauty, which I'm going to show you in a bit. But I want to first finish with the classification of the three genres. So chess problems, one more time. Dude or dudette composed it. It's a chess composition. Problems, unlike studies, always state the length of the problem. So it's a mate in 2, a mate in 3, a series helpmate in 157, and so on. Actually, the only one that they don't state number of moves that don't necessarily have to is the retrograde problems, but I don't want to go there. It's really a subculture within a subculture that I don't really want to talk about at this point. In stark contrast to this, we have got studies. Studies are also compositions. They also do not come from chess games played by one dude or another against another, although there is a very strong link between over-the-board chess and studies. A lot of studies have been composed based on an inspiration from a game, and vice versa. A lot of beautiful chess games and their beautiful finishes were coming from studies that were seen before by the player, and remember the motif and their inspiration came from a study. There is a huge overlap. In fact, theoretical endgame studies are actually composed with the intention of figuring out certain positions, just like a table base, of whether they are winning or drawing. And it's a beautiful training tool, which again is somewhat underutilized in the big wide world. Now, these studies again range from the absolutely obnoxiously complex and really not chess game look, but they also feature lots and lots and lots of positions that look very much like a chess game, and their solutions usually run much more along the lines of how chess games do. In strong contrast to the problems, their flow is somewhat different, and their logic too, in that they very often have checking and aggressive starting moves, which in chess problems is essentially a major fail. And finally, the third one, so we had problems, we had studies. The third one, no set moves, by the way, so it's always, in fact, not almost, always white to move or draw. Every single study starts with white to move, and every single chess problem starts with white to move, except for the helpmates, which has its own logic why black moves first there. I don't want to go there now. Finally, last but not least, we have got puzzles. Puzzles, 99% of the time, come from games that were played between two humans or computers, whatever, you get my point. They come from a chess game. It's a snippet of a chess game where something absolutely breathtakingly beautiful was played, and it's a good teaching material to practice tactics, mating motifs, whatever you name it. And with this, we are done with the 3 different genres, and hopefully this clarifies very clearly the dividing lines between the 3. The major one that people confuse is problems and puzzles, and the main difference between the two is problems are composed, puzzles are played. That's as plain as it can be. And now, on to my second agenda with this video is that I would like you to appreciate, in case you don't yet, the role of problem compositions. And there are usually 3 kinds of chess players when it comes to chess problems. The number one is the one that looks at this position, or even more so onto the next one, which is particularly ugly, and they go like, this has nothing to do with chess, I'm not interested. And frankly, very little I have to say, other than you don't know what you are missing out on until you actually dedicate half an hour, potentially this very half an hour that I'm doing right here, right now, to this, to change your opinion about this. Second category is the one that occasionally likes to engage with problems, and they still are rather iffy about it and go like, yeah, nah, not my cup of tea, play the most ridiculous move on the board and that's gonna be the key move. And this is already a way to engage. It's an extremely shallow way to treat an entire artistic genre, if you will. So there is a lot of room for improvement there, but there is already engagement here. And I'm actually mostly trying to talk to this group, because I think these are the people who are the easiest to convert into the third category, who are actually willing to spend a little bit more time on a problem beyond solving it or beyond looking at the solution, to try to understand the inner mechanism of a problem. Because what most people in the second group, the play the most ridiculous move and that will do, don't understand is that there has never been, perhaps with the exception of Samuel Lloyd, who was an absolute teaser of a dude, a single chess problem composer on planet Earth who sat down with the intention of making a puzzle. Second time round I'm falling into my own trap. I'm modeling what not to do here. Who sat down to compose a problem with the intention of coming up with a ridiculous key move. And in fact, chess problems are sent to competitions where they get valued, or rather assessed is a better way to put it, and they have a hierarchy and they hand out prizes. And in order for a problem to be successful, it needs to demonstrate a theme. Now, having a ridiculous first move is not a theme. And if you are willing to dig just deep enough to engage with what is this problem trying to do and how does it achieve it, then you are already going to enjoy these problems a million times more than what you would normally do. Let me model this to you. This position is coming from a British composer called Cummins Mansfield, who actually composed the vast majority of his problems exactly 100 years ago. And by the way, I wanted to tell you this, that chess problem composition is actually going to be the angle of chess that is going to be dead first. As a matter of fact, I don't believe in the death of chess ever, because inevitably computers will figure out the game, and as Fabiano Caruana correctly stated, it's going to have zero impact on humans' chess, because we will not be able to memorize all the stuff that would sufficiently support us in order to win every single chess game we play. But with chess problem compositions, especially 2 and 3 movers, the themes have been entirely exhausted, many of them, and composed to perfection. So the very best you can do is to repeat what's been done. And many of these problems, third time round, that I'm going to show you now, 100 years old, and the concepts they model in such a perfect setting, it's unimaginable that someone could actually improve on them. And in fact, a lot of problem composers later on, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, realized that all they were doing was to reinvent the wheel. So instead, they already looked at existing problems and they tried to refine them and perfect them. And many of the times they came up short because the existing ones were already perfect. Anyway, let's see what's going on here. Why to move mate in 2? The first thing we see, and if you are a solver, this is very important, you engage this the same way, is that the king has got already 2 squares, or rather black has 2 moves. King c4, bishop b3 is mate. And rook. That was a rook move that was met with mate as well. But so there is a so-called set mate. That means that if a black were to move, we could deliver a checkmate. Having said that, the white key move is going to be completely turn this upside down. So the key to solve this problem in 2 moves is knight takes b3. Now this perfectly fits into the most ridiculous first move nonsense, because what this move does is that it blocks the bishop's diagonal, thus it ruins the mate that was already set before the key move was played, but more importantly, it exposes the white king to a variety of checks. So the first move is extremely paradoxical and illogical on normal chess terms, because if your objective is to give a mate and you can get checked right before you are supposed to give a mate, that's like, doesn't make any sense. On top of that, this move actually allows the king an extra square to go to. The chess problem composition jargon calls it a flight-giving key move, which means that compared to the starting position, the black king has got now way more freedom, which again is a paradoxic effect, because you feel like you would want to tighten the screw and make sure that the king has nowhere to go. And now from 1, we have increased its squares to go to 2, which is quite significant in this particular case. Now the checkmates are absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. So let's go one by one. If the rook gives a check here, that also means that if you want to use a discovery, then the rook would be able to block it off on e4. So the only checkmating move here is knight d4, which successfully blocks the check towards the king. It also blocks the rook's path towards e4, and so this check can be handled, and all the squares around the king are covered by the respective white pieces. Now, rook b5 check, in stark contrast, cannot be met by this checkmate, because then the king escapes on c4. Now, however, we don't have to worry about the fourth rank at all, so it's time to bring in the other knight and give a check with the bishop. I already recommend you, if I'm losing you, to go back and check why these mates didn't work the other way around. Finally, if the rook goes to c6 to give a check, Now, I have to be very careful because c4 still needs to be covered, so this check is out. But I also cannot go here because then the rook blocks that check. So now the only way to achieve the mate is actually to put the knight on c5, again relying a discovered check, but this time again also shutting a rook out from the checkmate pattern. And with that, now we need to move on to the moves of the black king. By the way, just to clarify this, because it's very important, because two-mover chess problems very often are divided into the ones where we create a threat, whereas the ones where we try to zugzwang black. Knight takes b3 does create a threat. The threat is knight fd2 checkmate. Yeah. Because then the knight covers c4. So ironically, we actually have to shut this bishop in order to create a working mate threat. So that's the threat that black is trying to dodge, and all the rook checks obviously do dodge it by virtue of giving a check. Now, let's have a look at king moves. If the king comes here, the knight jumps back to where it came from. This is another beautiful motif in chess problem composition. It's called a switchback, when a piece departs from a square and during the solution it goes back where it came from. A very paradoxic effect, because you would go like, what's the point? Like, I've got so few moves, 2 moves, and then I'm going to and fro, and yet that's the only way to mate, an additional extra there. If the king goes to c6, we come in from here. Note that this is a double check, and on top of that the knight covers the b5 square, so the king can't escape that way either. And that basically leaves us with one more attempt to stop the mate, which is queen e6. So now the planned checkmate on d2 doesn't work because queen e4 blocks, but now we have got knight e5 checkmate, beautifully again covering the king's flight and shouldering again the queen's block, which is the main motif of this whole entire composition. Now, like I said, if you are on the level of engaging with problems where you go like, okay, let's look at ridiculous moves, king here, rook here, and then eventually we go to the ridiculous, let's allow a check, oh yeah, it was easy, you don't get what this thing has to offer. If you go through these variations and you identified, for example, how amazingly this knight keeps on shutting down the black heavy pieces, both denying the check and the block, and then doing it on the same on the other side of the board, then you just go like, wow. So to give you an idea about how much we should appreciate a composition like this, the way how this position was born was this. Cummins Mansfield sat down behind his chessboard and went like, right, I want to compose a problem where the key move is going to allow discovered check, which in turn is going to be answered by a discovered check checkmate. However, the black battery, the queen rook, then is going to get at least 4 moves, 1, 2, 3, 4, where not only am I going to respond with a discovered check checkmate, but the piece that discovered the check would have to actually block off an attempt on blocking my check. It's harder to explain than to do. Now, if you set yourself this task and start composing this problem, even if you are a composing genius like Cummins Mansfield was, it would take you weeks, potentially months, to perfect it. Because apart from the fact that it does work the way it works, it also has to be the only solution to the problem. If there is any other way to do the mate, it's a complete fail. And so, for this particular theme, it's an absolute masterpiece. And you need to spend exactly as much, if not more time than I have now to appreciate it. I'll show you a better one though. This video is gonna be long. This is the starting position, so I somewhat ruined it, but I don't think I really did. Another Mansfield composition. Okay? This is basically a pin fest, and in my opinion, this is one of the best checkmate in 2 problems that has ever been composed. Definitely one of the best. And that's a huge call. We're talking about thousands of mate in twos that were first prize winners that blew the judges away by their sheer genius. And as an amateur chess problem admirer, I have seen a fair few in my own life where I went like, whoo, boy, that was something next level. And this is definitely one of my all-time favorites. So this one, like I said, is predominantly about pins. The queen is pinned, and there's also a discovery here. There's also a discovery here. So it's a bit of a discovery slash pins. It looks like we should have an easy mate, no worries at all. But the problem is that as soon as we promote, this gets taken, actually with the bishop, and we don't have a mate in 1. We do have a mate in 2, we check and then take the knight, but we can't give a mate in 1. And likewise, if you turn it into a knight, then after king e8, we only have mate in 2, not mate in 1. And so the absolutely breathtaking solution to this puzzle is playing knight e6. Now again, this move is amazing on its own right because it gives an extra move to the king that wasn't there. And it also breaks the pin on the queen of all pieces, which means that now that queen has 5 million things to do that you would assume is going to mess up the mate. Once again, let's establish the point of the move first. The point of the move is that now we have got 2 mate threats, one here, one here. Both relying on renewing the queen pin. So if I play f2, knight c5, checkmate, the queen can't take because of the pin. Now let's see the responses that black has. It's absolutely next level. If the queen takes the knight, then we have got this beautiful backward moving thrust, queen check, utilizing the pin on the queen is actually checkmate. You would wonder why didn't we do it on move 1? It's because the knight was blocking our path. Note that the key move does not create this threat because now the king could take and the queen could block. But queen e6 actually takes both of those options away and it's mate. The other staggeringly beautiful checkmate is if the queen takes on a b5, allowing a new free square for the black king, whereupon knight e4 check is the mate, utilizing the newly created pin on the queen, which went seemingly from pin to pin, although that was a semi-pin. And now I can't go back to block off the mate because of the pin now on that side. Also note how this knight had to come back here to cover the c6 square as well. Already, you should be going like, what? Wait, what? But there is more. Obviously, the check is met by knight takes f4. That's a fairly mundane checkmate in here. But now I have got a few more star variations for you to offer. If the king takes on e6, then we get very upset because we like horses. So we get a new one. Thank you very much. And you won't believe this, but again, the pin on the queen means that the knight can be captured. Whoa, hello. Okay, not too bad, I hear you say. If knight e7 to block off this rank and to offer a hiding square somewhere, then we get to play the threat knight c5. Knight e7 defended the knight f8 mate, but it allowed this to happen. Once again, the pin worked like charm. And last but not least, the last thing I have to offer to you is queen takes f7, which actually defeats both threats by virtue of making the e8 square accessible for the black king. But you guessed it correctly already. We have a problem here that the queen now walked into another pin, and so now knight takes c7 is a checkmate because the queen again fails to return to its post due to the fact that it pinned itself again. Now, if you do not analyze this to this depth, there is no way that you can appreciate the immense beauty and genius of this composition. And in order to accelerate this video a little bit and to show you how much you need to understand the theme of a problem to appreciate the value of it and the effort of the composer, I will show you one of them. Let's go with one of the most famous but potentially the most famous mate in 3 puzzles that was ever composed. Big call again. So I need to drink. This is a mate in 3 composed by the incredibly famous Loshinsky. What was his surname? I think it was Lev. Loshinsky. Yes, Lev Loshinsky. Awesome. I wasn't sure because there was a very famous composer called Lev Yarosh, who, by the way, was a soccer coach before he became an incredibly successful chess problem composer. So, on to the problem, and I will go a bit quicker here. The key move of this amazing creation is Queen B1. And the idea behind this concept is that if I play a pass by black of any kind, then we have got check, king takes, and double check, checkmate. Note that the queen is needed for this, because otherwise the f5 square would be accessible for black. So now we start thinking about, okay, how can we defeat the threat? Okay, so we cannot take here, because then after queen takes, we have a new idea, and that is queen mate here and knight mate here, and both can't be stopped at the same time. Rook takes g3 also allows a quick mate by take, take, and mate. And so these are all irrelevant side variations. We now come to the core of the problem, and that is this. Black plays rook d5, thus vacating the d4 square. So now if I want to go check, 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 there is no mate. Thank you, honey. Ooh, mint tea and brownies, baby. And I'm not even streaming. Thank you, gorgeous. Right, so the idea here is the following. When the rook goes to d5, we go rook d4. Yep, the idea of this move is that it defends the pawn. So now we have got two, well, and not so, but also it allows us to create 2 mate threats. Knight h5, mate threat, and ed5 is a new mate threat. And black can stop both. So we go like, okay. All right, I've got it covered. So instead of rook here, I should go rook d6, and then I will be fine. Solution, rook d5. And now, apart from knight h5, I also have bishop takes e5 checkmate threat. By now, I'm guessing that you are going like, whoa, that's not bad. I've got more. If the rook goes to d7, following the exact same logic, well, guess what? You won't believe it. We have got rook d6. And now the idea is that we have got knight mate here and rook mate here. And again, both of them can't be stopped with one move. So now you saw this incredible link between these two rocks. How if it went there, we went there. If it went there, we followed it one square up further. If it went all the way, we went all the way up on top of that. Now that alone, picture this. You want to design, to compose a problem where the solution involves 3 different rook moves, which are all answered by my rook right on top, moving right on top of it. An incredibly difficult task. Absolutely, like I could spend a lifetime on it, it wouldn't work. And I tried my hand at composing, for the record. And that's only half of it. Because guess what? The rook can come here. Incredibly enough. And now there is a problem with our mate setup, because if we go knight h5, king e4, we don't have a rook checkmate because the rook blocks. Oops. So what we need to do is to deny the rook from blocking that. And of course, after rook takes rook, it's mate, because now the queen is sufficiently guarding e4. And there is no stopping of the mate on h5. Still not done. If the rook goes to b4, now obviously we do not have the mate again, because in the end this gets taken by check. So we go rook b3. And last but not least, if we go to a4, again we have a small problem here, because if I go check king here, I do not have the mates because of the knight can block. And so the only way to achieve the mate is to deny the pin on the bishop. But now I need to remember why this bishop is needed. Oh yes, because there is a variation when the king goes to e4 and it can go out to e, because we are covering that somehow. So let me think. If I go rook a3, the knight h5 mate is unstoppable. If I go rook... Oh yeah, of course, because then they just take on a2 and it's check. I'm being a clown. And that delays the mate in 3 to mate in 4. So he managed to create a puzzle, which is a problem. Fourth time I'm getting it wrong today. Where every single black rook move is answered by a matching white rook move just one square up onto the rook. And thus, the motif, the Loshinsky magnet, was introduced into the chess problem world because it looks like the black rook is pulling the white rook on a magnet and it follows it wherever it goes. And later on, many problems were composed for this idea in different genres, not only mate in threes, but helpmates, selfmates, all of it. And it achieved everlasting fame for them. So this is chess problems for you, baby. And I really do think that it's worth engaging with. Now, moving on to studies, I would like to show you one that is probably the most known study out there. It has got million stories around it. It's called incorrectly by many the Plushket study because he published it somewhere in an article and whatever. Long story short is Gufeld, the famous Ukrainian grandmaster, was given this study as a gift for his birthday with an unknown composer. And later on, it turned out that the composer was a Dutch dude called Van, I don't know how to say that, Breukelen. And the solution is breathtaking. It goes like this. By the way, this is one of the studies that got me into really and truly loving chess compositions of any kind, whether it be problems or studies, because I actually sat down and I solved this with a few friends of mine. And it took me about an hour and a half. And when I solved it, not only did it give me a huge satisfaction because I managed to tackle it, but because of the theme that it showed was just breathtaking. So the solution goes like this. Check, check. We can't queen right away because the knight just checks it down. That's the point. So we go check, check. Now the king can go here because then I get a queen and they can do the fork. And the king can go here because then I give a check and the king would have to go back to the back rank. And then I promote with queen. I must speed up a bit because this video will take forever. So king here. Check, takes, queen, check, here, takes, and here. And that's basically the prelude. And now what's happening is that there's a mate threat here. And so black must come here. We renew the mate threat here. And now the only way to stop this mate is to get a knight. And now it gets absolutely surreal. Because now white plays bishop d5. And that bishop dominates the knight entirely. The knight can't move at all because of the mate on f7. But also can't move to either of these squares because then I take and mate. And neither of the other two knights are in checking range of the king. And the threat is bishop here and mate. And so black plays c2. We go here. And now the only way to stop the mate is to get another knight. Now we have got 4 knights on the board. And yet they won't be able to defend the one pesky bishop and its threats. Now bishop e8 mate is threatened. Only way to stop it is knight here. And now after bishop a4, black has nothing against bishop d1 and mate. I mean, I can put the knight in the way, but it just delays the inevitable. And then next it's mate. This is easily one of the most famous chess chess study compositions, 5th mistake, out there. And a lot of people know it because of the amazing solution and the amazing content that it models. I can't help myself but add, despite of the fact that this is undoubtedly one of my favorite studies, that if you were sent it to a competition, which it was, it would actually rate fairly lowly in the eyes of the judges, because usually, especially from a modern study, you expect black to have sufficient counterplay and that black pulls amazing tactical tricks along the way as well as white. And this was all about white just carrying out an amazing attack and black helplessly trying to dodge the bullet every step of the way and failing miserably in the end with 4 knights. Now, I'm not saying this is not a great composition. I'm just telling you that this wouldn't even rate highly, especially by today's standards. But you have to be a bit of a study snob to not to go like, this is amazing. This is amazing. There is no doubt about that. And that's exactly the great thing about problems and studies, that you get to even appreciate them if otherwise they are not particularly famous, this one is, or particularly highly ranked like this one wasn't. Another one that I really like, which is looking a little bit more like a... Why does it have a pawn on d7? It's not meant to. It's not meant to have a pawn on d7, guys. That was a wrong entry. I copied it out from a database, and as soon as I looked at it, I'm like, that's not right. And I have it in my book too. And in the book, it doesn't have the pawn. What do we do? Let's set it up very quickly. This study I like a lot because although the pawn structure is a little bit messed up slightly, we still go like, yeah, this is actually looking a little bit like a real chess position. And we are set. And I really like this one. I particularly like because it's not too hard, but it's still amazingly beautiful. The idea of the win here is as follows. You go a7, queen a4. You go f7. And from here on, it's a very weird duel between the 2 pawns and the queen and the knight involved. So now queen a3 is necessary to deny both promotions. So we go knight b4. We block this off. And the queen can't take because then we go here. And the queen takes this. Now both promotions have been denied. So we go knight d5. Now this is getting annoying. Black goes. Now that has been blocked. Can't take because it's mate. So I have to swing back here. Again, I'm monitoring both promotions. All G. I go thank you, knight e7. Now if you take this, I promote this. Otherwise f8 promotes. So they go queen f3. And now comes the icing on the cake. Knight takes g6. Takes. Takes. And due to the fact that there is a bishop here, there is no check. And so now black has no defense against this, this, or this. Good luck. Breathtaking stuff. Not particularly hard, but what an amazing composition there. Absolutely beautiful stuff. And so, last but not least, I actually wanted to show you how they compare to chess puzzles that come from games, but you know chess puzzles inside out, so I'm going to actually delete that part of my plan, and I just want to show you how chess studies like this actually overlap with practical game 100%. And for that, you need to set up one by heart. Oh, I will show you one of my favorite pawn endings. Oh man, this is so cool. I love this one. Especially because it's so unassuming. I love this one. You will love it. So this is a white to move and draw. And as soon as I said it, you go like, hang on, what? Draw? Why can't we win this? And the more you look at it, the more you realize that despite of the fact that we can take one of the black pawns with check, this is actually very difficult to hang on to. Like take here, here so that I can oppose, and then here so that I can oppose again, and f6 and I'm dead. I don't want to go into why this is dead. Most of you should, and I believe do know basic pawn endings and opposition. And so, this is just like, this is a composition just like all the others you have seen. It's just that the composer, when he sat down to make something happen, they went like, okay, why don't I compose a pawn ending that is based on the concept of opposition, both for white and black, and where I can model an amazing double pawn sack for the sake of opposition. And so the solution runs like this: check, only move, g6, only move. Now if king takes, then my king gets to the pawn on time and it's an easy draw. So they must take with the pawn so that they can still eat this guy. Now f5, only move. If I go up and then I wait so that I can oppose again, then I lose the opposition and the game. And so the only winning move, drawing move here is f5. And after takes, you go like, hang on, but it's opposition and we have to move. Yes. But after king g1, king g5, king f1, now black can't retain the opposition. And after king up, opposition, draw. That's where study solving is 100% helping your chess. Because if you sit down to try to figure this out, you are looking at a position that has got every chance in the world that you could get in a game. More than likely you won't, but the chances of you getting this is 0. Right? Or 0.1. The chances of you getting that is infinitely higher. And this is also very, very practical to practice calculation, because it's an environment where there are very few pieces on the board, so visualization is easier, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. Now I'm really trying to cut back on this video. So this was a big talk about what chess problems, what chess studies, and what chess puzzles are. I only got them wrong 5 times in one video, so if you do better than that, it's already great. I hope that I managed to whet your appetite a little bit towards both genres. I only scratched the surface, especially with chess problems, because chess problems do branch out a lot of ways. Direct problems, helpmates, self-mates, reflex mates, the lot. Studies don't branch out. They are studies, and that's it. So there is a lot there to explore, and there is a lot there to appreciate. And perhaps all I'm asking, even if you don't want to engage with this too much, is just to try to be a little bit open-minded towards the beauty of a chess composition like this, even if the initial position to you looks like the cleaner lady just poured the chess pieces on top of the pieces when they tidied up the chess club and somehow this occurred. Because you would be surprised about the depth of thought and effort that went into it. And on that note, I'm going to call this off. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And just as a bit of a teaser, I haven't done this ever in my YouTubing life, so I'm going to do this now. A new video is coming soon. A review on this big, really fat boy. Almost double the size of the previous one that I have already reviewed. So I hope you are looking out for that one too. I'm going to bounce now and catch you soon. Bye.